When we talk about emergency business loans, especially the loans that are needed today, it's really important to have a formula for success if you want to qualify no matter what. And this is, I want to share with you in today's conversation the formula that will help you get your emergency business loan needed today ASAP. So here's the formula. First thing first, you got to have a clear idea why you need the funds. See, people talk about, this is an emergency business loan, but what does emergency really mean for you? Boss, explain that to me. Because the thing is, what is emergency? Because what you think is an emergency might not qualify as an emergency to the lender. So it's important to be that you and the lender be on the same page when it comes to the word emergency. So you need to decide why you need the funds. Determine why you need the funds now and what you need them for. Okay, so do you want to replace broken equipment? Do you want to repair property? Let's say, was there a natural disaster in your geography and you felt like, listen, I need to really repair, because see, we need to elevate the definition of the word emergency, because the thing is, if you need cash to actually pay a staff member, that's not an emergency. The lender is not going to look at it as an emergency, because what qualifies as emergency is what the lawyers and legal experts call acts of God, things that you cannot predict. See, paying your staff member, those are things you could have predicted. Like if you're hiring people, you know that, hey, listen, this person, you're paying this person 50 grand or 60 grand a month, a year. So you can plan this ahead. But if a machine breaks down, if there is a disaster, if there's an earthquake, something happens, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we had COVID. Those are things you cannot predict. So those things qualify as emergency. So you want to decide why you need the funds. Very important. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here to have this quick convo with you about emergency business loans needed today, how to actually qualify for a massive amount. In today's conversation, we want to talk about a $250,000 power play. How do you actually qualify for a large emergency amount? And so the thing is, if you know exactly why you need the funds, this is cool because targeting your specific needs will allow you to find the best loan option. I want you to think about, boss. I want you to determine what you qualify for. See, the first thing is you need to decide why you need the funds. The second thing is you need to determine what you qualify for. I don't care how great your credit score is. I don't care how great your business credit score or your personal credit score is. I don't care how beautiful your financials are. There are certain loans, certain emergency loans you will qualify for, and there are others you won't qualify for because you're not perfect. Your business is not perfect. Lenders are different. So the thing here is that lenders will look at your personal credit score when determining eligibility, of course, with the best rates usually given to those with higher credit scores. But the thing is that lenders also pay attention to a constellation of other factors. For example, your business plan. For example, your DSCR, your debt service coverage ratio, which is an important criterion that lenders pay attention to when it comes to establishing your ability to repay the emergency loan you're applying for. DSCR is kind of similar to DTI on the personal loan, on the individual loan side. So DTI, debt to income ratio, DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, is similar. It's not the same thing, but it's related. Okay. And I don't have time to explain the fundamentals today. But one thing I want to say here is that you need to determine what you qualify for. And when we talk about determining what you qualify for, you got to ask yourself, when it comes to business lenders, you have 4 types of business lenders. I want you to pay attention, boss. You have 4 types of business lenders. You have banks, you have credit unions, you have online lenders, and you have alternative lenders. And I can even add an extra layer of business lenders. We are speaking about the loan marketplaces. I'm talking about the Lendio of the world. I'm speaking about the NBC, the National Business Capital. I'm speaking about the SmartWays. Those are loan marketplaces. Those are lenders. Those are lender networks. So you got to ask yourself, what do you qualify for, and where can you get your loan real fast? Based on our experience, it's better to go to a loan marketplace. By the way, boss, I want to remind you of today's topic. I'm having a conversation with you about how to actually get an emergency business loan needed today. We're speaking about a $250,000 power play here. How do you actually structure everything so you can be approved for a maximum emergency loan, business loan amount of $250,000? Have established that it is indeed an emergency. This is important, right? We elevated the definition of emergency here. We're not speaking about little things like, I need money to pay for payroll, whatever. No, no, no. We need to elevate the definition of the word emergency. Number one. Number two, determine what you qualify for. Number three, gather the required documents. See, the required documents will depend upon the lender. And most of the time, people think, well, I know the business loan requirements already. I know it's the same thing. No, 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 no. The business loan requirements are different. Lenders have different needs. You need to understand. Lenders have different risk mitigation strategies, risk mitigation needs, and those that the business loan requirements will actually play an important role when it comes to them setting or establishing the required documents. What am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say that a credit union or a bank, for example, who is a credit union or bank that is risk averse will have a more, let's say, a stricter set of requirements than, let's say, an alternative lender or an online lender. If you take, for instance, Bluevine is an online business line of credit lender, and Bluevine has a different set of risk management strategies than, say, Navy Federal. You don't have the same sort of ecosystem here, right? And the capital requirements are different. I don't want to get too much into capital requirements and the regulatory side of things, but just remember that the requirements are different. This is why you want to contact the lender. This is why we advise you to go with the loan marketplaces, with the lender networks, the Lendio of the world, the NBC of the world, National Business Capital. I'm going to go with SmartBiz. Those are like, you are basically, first of all, you can pre-qualify for the loan. Number two, you can actually get your emergency business loan real fast because you have access to a pool of lenders. So your chances of qualifying are higher. The next thing I want you to do here is that once you go with whether you go with a pool of lenders or whether you go with 2, 3, 4, or 5 individual business lenders, always make sure that you compare lenders. You want to compare and contrast lenders. I know you're probably sitting there, you're thinking, you know what? I'm looking for an emergency business loan needed today. Yes. But you don't want to settle yourself with debt that's crazily high, with the APR that's crazily high. Take the time, and it probably take you 5-10 minutes. As a matter of fact, nowadays you have platforms that allow you to do the analysis right away. You don't have to do this manually or do this in Excel. You basically have platforms such as NerdWallet. You have I'm blanking right now, Bankrates.com. You have NerdWallet. You have other players that allow you to actually compare and contrast business loans, so you have a clear idea if you are making the right decision. Okay, but you got to compare lenders. And when we talk about comparing lenders before applying, we're speaking also about pre-qualifying. So that if you pre-qualify, you can see how much you could qualify for, right? I mean, that's the essential definition of pre-qualifying. And comparing lenders is also good in terms of, because see, when we talk about comparing lenders, we're not just speaking about the APR. We are also speaking about the repayment window. We're also speaking about how much you could qualify for. Remember, if we're doing a power play of $250,000 in terms of the emergency business loan, you want to ask yourself, how much could I qualify for? I mean, if you have a lender such as a Navy Fed, for instance, is actually willing to qualify you for $50,000, but then you have another player such as Balboa Capital, which is ready to actually qualify you for, let's say, $150,000. The math is there right away. Maybe because Balboa Capital's risk mitigation strategies are not as strict as those of a Navy Fed. Okay, I'm not trying to say one is better. It's just that everybody has a different view of things. So you need to compare lenders. You want to see how much you can qualify for. You want to really pay attention to your APR, to your loan amount, to your repayment window, and all the constellation of ancillary fees, ancillary conditions that you have. Like, for instance, some lenders will want to repay them every week. Some lenders will want to repay them every day. Yeah. Some lenders will want to repay them every 2 weeks. Some lenders will want you to repay the emergency business loan every month. So be clear on the terms and conditions that the lender wants you to have before you actually sign up with the lender. Very, very quite essential. Now about the approach. So when we talk about emergency business loans needed today, what is the approach I want you to really pay attention to? Now, when to consider fast business funding. The thing here is that you could consider an emergency business loan when you need to pay for operational expenses during slowdowns. Let's say you are in the sector of the economy where you're having problems right now. Banks are closing here and there. You have like nobody's lending, or customers are taking too long. They're dragging their feet to actually pay you. Like you give them a net 30, but they're taking net 90, and you can't sue their asses because those are your customers. You don't want to sue your customers anyway. So you are in a bind, right? You are facing a conundrum, a liquidity conundrum. So this could be a great opportunity to actually consider fast business funding. Remember, we have elevated the terminology here, right? So when we say emergency, it must be a real emergency. Now, there are some cases where lenders exceptionally might accept your definition, quote unquote definition of emergency, where, for example, you want to get cash to meet payroll. You want to get cash to pay bills because receivables are delayed. Like in those cases, lenders will pay attention to your receivables. They'll analyze your receivables and see, okay, the clients are still in business. The clients are solid. They just are very slow. So this could be a possibility. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you once again of today's topic. What are we talking about? We are speaking about emergency business loans needed today. How do you actually qualify real fast? And one thing I want to say here is that there is a long list of things that qualify, that lenders accept when it comes to emergency, and they accept if they have to review an emergency business loan application. So you can use an emergency business loan to replace broken equipment. That's really cool. You can repair property damage in a disaster. You can cover sudden necessary changes in operations. Let's say you have a new regulation and the authorities want you to change the way you process certain things, and you haven't seen that coming, so you have to make a change, or you want to pursue an urgent business opportunity. Let me give you a winner here. So we want to have the thing is, as we're trying to increase our chances of qualifying for an emergency business loan needed today, there are certain things you got to ask yourself when considering this type of emergency business loans. Remember, because emergency business funding can be expensive and borrowing could compound ongoing financial problems, take a moment to ask yourself these questions before applying for an emergency business loan. What I'm trying to say here is that, hey, listen, yes, you probably are in a bind right now. You need cash. You gotta make ends meet. You gotta make operational ends meet. You gotta pay bills that are coming. You don't have time to philosophize, right? Yeah, I get you. I understand that. You don't have time to philosophize, but you gotta think about the cost of the potential cost of the loans you are about to get now. How are those costs going to affect your balance sheet in the future, your income statement, your statement of cash flows, and your owner's equity statements? So I want you to really I want you to have a holistic view of your financial situation to see, okay, I'm getting a loan. Okay, I'm getting a loan, but how is that going to impact me? So how much money do I need? If I get that much money, how will I pay back plus interest, right? We're thinking here about what? Liquidity strategies. Cash inflows, cash outflows. What is the liquidity delta? What is the gap here? Do I need the funding right away, or am I anticipating its needs? In other words, is the emergency real, or this is just like in my head? Because sometimes you can be thinking about things they're not here yet. Everybody does that, been there, done that. And you also got to ask yourself, how much information am I willing to provide to apply? Right? It's all about you having some skin in the game. So this is important. And how fast do I need to receive the money after applying? 1 day, same day, next day, 3 days down the road, 1 week down the road? What is really important here? Do I need one-time, recurrent, or ongoing funding? What loan terms work best for me? If you need ongoing funding, then you might want to think about a business line of credit, right? Because it's one of those things you got to ask yourself, maybe you need a business line of credit. And does my credit score or credit history make it difficult for me to qualify? Do I have unpaid invoices I could leverage to get funding? If you have unpaid invoices, then you can probably look for things like MCA, merchant cash advances, or you can look into invoice factoring. You can look into invoice financing. So you have other types of revenue-based financing that are possible here. So when we talk about revenue-based financing, then your credit score doesn't matter anymore, right? Because a revenue-based financing program is kind of similar to something that's collateralized, because your revenue is actually serving as the underlying collateral here, even though it's not really revenue is not an asset, but revenue could be an asset. In other words, your accounts receivable could be an asset. They are actually, accounts receivable are an asset. Also, you got to ask yourself, is my need caused by a declared disaster? To understand that you have other ways of raising the funds, the funds to sort of quell the emergency you currently have. Okay, and so you can use business credit cards. You can apply for personal loans. You can use a business line of credit. You can actually also get a business line, you can have a personal line of credit. So you have different avenues of fundraising. And the question is, which one is the cheapest for you in the specific situation you're in right now? What is the cheapest for you? And could you use a business credit card instead of an emergency business loan? In other words, can you use your business credit card to to pay for what the emergency is? In other words, if you don't need to use cash, if you could use a business credit card to actually to cover the emergency, then it's fine. You don't have to apply for an emergency business loan. Do you have an existing personal loan that you can actually tap into to cover the emergency? Or another question, do you have a business line of credit? Or another question, can you actually, I just spoke about this, can you collateralize some of your assets? When we talk about assets, we're speaking about your accounts receivable. We're speaking about your short-term assets. Short-term assets could be also if your business has checking accounts or a brokerage accounts, for instance, or you have maybe some piece of equipment. This could be a copier, it could be a printer, it could be a lot of things, fax machine, whatever. Or it can be property, plant, and equipment. It can be factory machinery, whatever. Okay. You also have, there's something called your prepaid expenses. Those are also assets. And so what I'm trying to say here is that I don't want to get into too much detail here, but you do have elements that you can collateralize if you want to get a loan, if you want to get funding without applying for a loan. So it's just important for you to explore your options so that if you are not in a situation where you want to apply for an emergency loan, that you can actually qualify for another arrangement. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I've talked to you about emergency business loans needed today, how to qualify, and I gave you the formula for success here. The approach you got to go through, the winner and the bonus category. And then I close today's conversation with a recap. Thank you. God bless you. I'll speak to you another time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.